Oh, yes, go with Josh and Mio. All right, so this is another supporting evidence video that's going to go into plants a little bit more again. Um, so at this point in our world, we have a lot of big changes in our sciences, our understanding, mental health, interpersonal. All of these things are having huge turnovers. We're having about faces in a lot of these understandings, and the process of bringing what's known to what's understood to the masses takes time, right? And so we think about the example of putting butter on burns. How long did we know that was a bad idea, that it made it worse before we actually stopped doing it in general? And so when we look at all of these things as far as what we've done with plants in the past and how we've treated them, so there's one video on here that I was watching that was had all of these people on it. I can't remember the name of the video now. I'll put it in the link. But you have this whole panel of scientists, and as you watch them, they dance around like they absolutely are terrified of saying plants are alive and conscious, even though, and it's because of what science has done, right? So if we look at all of these different aspects, these are all different disciplines in science, right? And so if we take each one, which is what they're doing, we have the standpoint of Simon Garnier, we have Monica Galliano, we have Tom Horton, and what's this? Kathleen Tressiter. Each one of these scientists has their own discipline, and from that narrow perspective, yeah, we might be stepping over it. And so, like this guy says, we might have to change what we understand the definition of intelligence is. Well, there's intelligence have a definition. We don't just change that to exclude what we don't like about these experiments that we're doing, right? And so, I said, so the big changes we have epigenetics versus genetic determinism, right? Aether versus Einstein, light that's intelligent, water that has memory, cooperation versus natural selection. And so when we have the plants, that's the big understanding that is people are struggling with, is it's anti-evolution, right? It doesn't believe in natural selection. It believes in cooperation. And they thought because when trees were growing, that they would try to vie for the space above, that they were going to take away from the other ones. But instead, it's actually a well thought out, well managed, well functioned understanding. And trees, they're saying now, can tell the difference between their kin, between a random tree. And so as they make these extra materials, they can skip past a tree and send needed chemicals to a tree beyond it. Then we have Miss Garnier over here that does the bioacoustics and plant learning. I'll just read a little thing on here quick. It says, my main research is broadly focusing on key aspects of ecological processes by which organisms are able to gather information on the variable conditions of their surroundings, environment in order to thrive. In collaboration with several disciplines across the sciences, the humanities, my research aims at expanding our perception of animals, plants, and more generally nature. In the process of learning how to do this, I have pioneered a brand new research field of plant bioacoustics and extended the concept of cognition to plants, reigniting the discourse on plant subjectivity, sentience, and ethical standing. And that's my thing right there. The science, subjectivity, and ethical standing. Those things are why I'm doing the greenhouse and the training and all that, is because if we take all these understandings and look at how we're treating plants right now in the farming industry, so they're saying that if you go through all of these studies, they're saying that plants can recognize people. They get stressed out from different chemicals. They communicate through chemicals in the air. You know, I mean, this is like a artistic rendition of how they communicate, right? And they respond to stressors. You know, if the one study they had caterpillars in a little bottle eating leaves, and they would spray that in the air because plants can tell the difference between a damaged part of their plant and a healthy part. And so they would send signals across the air to prepare the other plants for possibility of damage, so they can get ready. You know, get ready for battle is what they were saying. You know, it's crazy. So, and then like I said, this guy is Simon Garnier. He's the one that's doing the slime mold studies, and they were actually having these things do casinos, labyrinth, you know, stuff that has only been attributed to thinking intelligence, not even just thinking, but intelligence. They were actually able to find the shortest route to beat the casino. You know, and several recent studies hint at shared patterns and decision making between taxonomically distant organisms, yet few studies demonstrate and dissect mechanisms of decision making in simpler organisms. We examined decision making in the unicellular slime mold Parasum polycephalum using classical decision problem adopted from human and animal decision making studies. So that's basically anthropomorphism. They study it because it is a thing. It's not like, oh, you're just giving it human attribute, blah blah. No, that's how studies are done. You know, it's because they have. So even like in the so they're finding that inside of these cellular structures, they have serotonins. You know, the mind chemicals that we attribute to neurons and electrical impulses in the brain are functioning and present in plants, right? So the problem has previously only been used to study organisms with brains, yet here we demonstrate that brainless unicellular organisms compare the relative qualities of multiple options, integrates over repeated samplings to perform well in random environments, and combines information on reward frequency and magnitude in order to make correct and adaptive decisions. We extend our inquiry by using Bayesian model selection to determine the most likely algorithm. That's the casino stuff or whatever, you know. And then, and so mycelium, the Thomas Horton, his experiments or whatever is almost all plants are engaged in symbiotic relationships with mycorrhizal fungi. These soil fungi can promote plant growth by supplying limiting nutrients to plant roots in return for plant assimilates. Many mycorrhizal fungi are not host-specific, and one fungal individual can colonize and interconnect a considerable number of plants. The existence of these so-called mycorrhizal networks implies that fungi have the potential to facilitate growth of other plants and distribute resources among plants, irrespective of their size, status, or identity. In this paper, we explore the significance of mycorrhizal fungal networks for individual plants and for plant communities. We address the following questions. Are all plant species benefiting from these networks? Is benefit dependent on the size or age of plant? Is fungal support related to relative dominance of plants in community? Right? And so, I said the studies just keep going on and on and on. And the Wood Wide Web is really, really an interesting topic in general. And so what that goes is it goes into this mycelium layer, and the mycology, and it really describes it like a brain, a giant nature brain. And so you look at the trees in Africa that were modifying or releasing tannins to become poisonous in a drought, you know, and you look at the studies of what the scientists are doing with the Anastasia and the ringing cedars. So again, what they were doing is they were having people hold seeds under their tongue and stand in the dirt where they're going to plant it, and they found that the plant, once it grew, it would compensate for their vitamin mineral deficiencies, you know. And so that is, according to all this, a choice, you know. And so we go back to like the traditional teachings. They said that, you know, when we came under that lesser star, when we switched from the brighter pulsar to the dimmer one, you know, out of the three, that the animals stopped talking to us, and we in return started hunting them and eating them, and in retribution they gave us disease and sickness. And so they said that the plant nation stepped up and said, okay, for every sickness there is, we will have the cure for it in the plant kingdom. That you just have to be able to find it, you know, and work that out. And I'm saying that is, you know, according to this, the most realistic answer. That they are making choices. That these are not just reflexive actions, you know, like a mousetrap. You know, that these are considered methodical choices made by this plant world to support us, right? And so with the greenhouses, we can narrow that down. You know, and again, like, think about how stressed out they are when we're using the fertilizers and pesticides on them, and what that does to them on a stress level. And then that carries over to us as people, and we consume that. So we think about these studies where they got happy cows, how it influences our immune system. You know, we have to look at the same information, the same understanding for plants now. So the people that play classical music for their plants, you know, and we have these other studies that show that bird music opens up the little pores on the bottom of leaves in the morning. And so all of these things are interconnected, right? Sound. So people that play music for their plants, they respond. I have seen plants move. When I was in the garden over Southside, there was a sunflower plant that I swear would slap me. It would knock stuff out of my hand. It would stick its sticky leaf to my hat and pull it off. And I don't have proof, obviously, but I was talking about that to the other gardeners that were in there for this medicine garden we had. And of course, they didn't believe me. But then I caught it one day. I was not towards the sun. I was away from the sun. And I told the other gardeners, like, look, it's looking at me. And when she looked, that sunflower was in the process of turning away from the sun to look directly at me. No lie. And I had a witness. But the point is that there is truth to these things. When we start looking, and we're not just reading pages to dismiss, because like I said, again, if you watch these guys talking, they are legitimately afraid of saying that these things are alive, because they are coming from this separated divide and conquer aspect of the way these sciences work. If you take one individually, you can pick it apart and have doubts. When you put it all together like this, you really have no choice but to say, okay, there's these plants are intelligent. They're learning. Not only do they learn, but they can, when they figure something out, they can transfer that learned knowledge, that wisdom, to another plant. You know, that's something we as humans can do. Like I said, all of this stuff. You know, if you watch these videos that I'll add in the link on how these plants communicate and all this kind of stuff. You know, I did one before here, but they got copyrighted, so I had to figure out how to do this without that on there, the visualizations and stuff. But it's amazing how they work together, how they communicate. You know, the information we have on these things now is, like I said, I don't. It's amazing to me. It blows me away every time I start looking at it, because as I said, they are individuals, and they behave individually. And I would like to get one of those symphony machines they got that digitize these plants, right? Their sound into music, you know. And then they already have sounds. So, according to that Monica Galliano, that plants already essentially make noise, and they talk, and that by that talking they can distinguish plants that are out of visual sight from them by the sounds that they make. You know, so again, like I said, it's wild. I'll add a bunch of links down below, and you can see how they step around that concept. She doesn't seem to mind. I mean, she's got this book right here. What is it called? Thus Spoke the Plant, you know. The other ones were, they didn't want to say those things out loud. But like I said, I have So I have a class that we're doing right now for the University of Minnesota on medicine gardens that go into all this, specifically because when we're growing medicines, we want to apply this information so that we can get the best version of that medicine that we can, and of course give it that gratitude and appreciation that it deserves, right? And so we think about these plants, you know, all the things we do, how we just go and snatch those flowers off. And so now they literally have heard plants screaming from pain. It sounds, you're gonna think I'm crazy, but it's true. They've, you know, and even in the summertime, if you live by corn, you can hear the corn growing, right? And so now they're saying they actually have individual noises, and that if you put a like a stethoscope on the ground and lay and sit there long enough, you'll hear it clicking. And they actually have on one of their videos the recording of that, of the sounds that the plants make in the audible spectrum. It's just really quiet. You know, you just got to be able to silence yourself and listen. You know, so again, like I said, this was just to kind of touch base on that and kind of put it out there. When do we as a community of people apply this information that we have now to agronomy, husbandry, you know, in the products we put in our house, and the effect that it has on the quality of those things? You know, so on the animal ones, when they're studying those, when they have happy cows and they're fed properly with well-maintained natural products, that there is something like 85% difference in the value of that meal that's coming from that. And so we think about that with plants, you know. And so we look at a daily allowance recommendation. Again, those are based on plants that have been well in the past. You know, now we've had these decades of mass farming, subsidies. You know, I worked for a farmer that was absolutely just heartbroken about the government subsidies destroying micro farming. And so I'm hoping to do that again, to bring that back, micro farming, decentralization. You know, greenhouses. Like I said, the amount of food you can get out of a small space, if it's well thought out, is astronomical. We have concepts that we can consider for like biogeometry, electroculture, sound, bioacoustics. You know, all of these things we can now integrate into our farming process to make the most amazing plants that you can possibly imagine, that help us grow from within and recognize these relationships. I mean, oh man, just imagine. Like I said, her goal is to make all of these things redundant, where it's just a known. All right, okay, plants are intelligent, they're alive. I agree, you know, and so that's what you know, that's what I'm hoping for. That's my intention, and yeah, I appreciate your time. Hope.